Hey everyone, George Christie again with Wine Industry Network. Welcome to the final session of the day, actually the final session of the Wine Industry Sales Symposium. And again, thank you for taking all the time to be with us, and I hope you got a lot out of it. This particular session is titled 3 Pillars of DTC Wine Sales Success. And it's just a really interesting topic that I think you're going to enjoy. I think a lot of it is about there is no one single thing that we need to do to be successful. It's really a combination of things. And this panel really does a terrific job, I think, of bringing that out. Before we get started, I want to thank our session sponsor, Harvest Hosts. Thank you guys for all your support. Obviously, I want to thank our presenting sponsor, Red Chirp, for all their support. And of course, I want to thank you for all your time. Before we hand it off to Sandra Hess, I just want to remind everybody that we pre-record these sessions for quality purposes, but we also do it so that you can engage with those speakers as they're actually presenting. So all of our speakers are watching the same broadcast you are. They're in the chat room. So if you have questions, you don't need to wait till the end. You can ask those questions as they come to you, and they're going to respond directly. I think that about covers it. And now I'd like to hand it off to Sandra and let her take it from there. Thanks, Sandra.
This session is sponsored by Harvest Hosts. Wineries that work with Harvest Hosts make an average of $13,000 in additional revenue each year, and it is always completely free.
You need more people to taste your wines, join your club, and stay in it. Red Chirp's here to help. Get more and better leads from your website. Requests go right to your phone, so no one has to log in and staff it. And after they leave, you can still continue the conversation and make more sales. Club members should feel like friends, and friends text each other. Texting with Red Chirp is so easy. You'll never have to buy work phones or share your personal number. Plus, you'll reach people 10 times faster and get more responses, too. With all these new sales, you'll need a better way to collect payments. Do it by text with Red Chirp. It's more secure, more convenient, and you'll get paid 6 times faster. Text messaging will get you more leads, close more sales, and build stronger relationships. You make it possible. Red Chirp makes it easy.
And thank you, George, for having me here with this fine group of panelists. We are excited to kick off today's discussion on the 3 pillars of DTC sales success. Welcome all. We look forward to hearing from you via the chat window. This is an interactive conversation. We're taking all your questions. No bad questions ever when it comes to these kind of things. So let's move on. First of all, let's go ahead and meet the speakers. And so Sandra Hess, founder of DTC Wine Workshops. I speak around the globe now on the subject of wine consumer engagement strategies. I love my job, and I'm going to speak with you all today and share some of the key trends we're seeing when it comes to all things community building. So first off, let's go ahead and open it up in order of the speaker lineup here. Welcome, Efron.
Thanks for having me, Sandra.
So if you could each take some time to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your winery, your wine region. We've got a national audience of attendees here today who are excited to meet you.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I'm from Cliff Family Winery. I run the digital marketing program here, and Cliff Family Winery is actually based out of the Napa Valley, more specifically in the town of St. Helena. Small community, very intertwined with the different people around the area. So we've been around since 2004, mostly produce a small amount of wine, around 10,000 cases a year. Most of it's directly sold. So it's a really interesting model. One quick tidbit about Cliff Family is that it was actually founded by Gary Erickson and Kate Crawford. Both are the co-owners and co-founders of Cliff Bar and Company. So really interesting people to work for, very amazing people to work for, actually. And yeah, so I'm very excited to have this conversation with everybody today.
Wonderful, thank you. Maggie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am here in the middle of the vineyard. I am here representing Alta Colina Vineyard and Winery in Paso Robles, California. So we are right in the middle of the Central Coast, about 15 minutes inland from the coast. So warm days, cool nights, all that good stuff. And Alta Colina is my family's vineyard and winery. So I run Alta Colina with my father, Bob, And he really oversees kind of the production side. So the estate vineyard, winery production, we have an amazing team on that end, a small but mighty team across the board, really. And I am more on the sales and marketing side. And we are focused on estate grown runs here in Paso. And we're right at about 3,000 cases. So much like what Efren said, we're a direct brand. We plan to grow into the vineyard with our max capacity being about 5,000 cases. So the biggest we will ever be is very small. So that direct connection is really at the core of our business.
Thank you. And last but not least, Judd.
Thanks, Sandra. Well, my name is Judd Wallenbrock. I'm the president and CEO of C. Mondavi and Family with the flagship winery, Charles Krug. As you can see, I'm standing out in Highway 29 right now in front of our sign. And if you don't know Charles Krug, it's the oldest winery in Napa Valley. It was founded in 1861. And it is really what I like to call the place that started it all. All that Napa Valley is today started really at Charles Krug. And it's still family owned. I think what a lot of people don't know is that it's family owned by what I call the first family of American wine. It's the original Mondavi family. We're now in our fifth generation of Mondavi stewardship, which is pretty darn cool. And I personally am a 41-year veteran of the wine business. I was fortunate enough to kind of walk a mile in the shoes of everybody that touched wine as part of my career path. I was a retailer, restaurateur. I was a broker. I was a winery rep, and I have the distinction of founding my own winery out of my backyard in a shed called the Shed Toe here in Napa, and that was a winery where I gave all the profits to charity. So it's just a pleasure to be here, and can't wait to field some of the questions and talk to some of the people.
Thank you very much for joining us. And so, audience, you can see we've got some heavy hitters here. I mean, these are serious community builders, and I hand selected these individuals for a few reasons. One, you see that they represent the small, mid, and large size winery models. Two, they are true community builders. And so at the heart of what we're going to talk about today, when we get into these three pillars of DTC sales success, is community building. So I'm going to overkill it. You're probably going to hear me say that phrase maybe 50 times during our times together, because you know what? That is critical, especially coming out of COVID here, May 2021. We learned a lot during this pandemic with those brands who had formed communities. They found their tribes in advance of the pandemic. And, especially for our small brands, 65% of wineries across the nation today, 5,000 case producers and under. And, those who thrived during this challenging time of pandemic, 3-4 years ago with the fires, it's been those brands that knew how to form communities and really engage and re-engage with those communities in very meaningful ways. So we've got a lot lined up for you today. And I know top of mind for you all in the audience is, what in the heck are these three pillars of DTC sales success? So let's get right into it. First of all, providing meaningful invitations for like-minded consumers to become a part of the community. And there's a thoughtfulness about that. There's a thoughtfulness when you receive an invitation, when any of us receive an invitation that is important to us, something that we're interested in. There's been thoughtfulness about re-engaging and being a part of an event, an experience that we're truly interested in, because the wine brand has taken the time to get to know us at that level. And so segmentation, you've got a digital marketing guru here with Efron. If you have not followed him, by the way, the Cliff Family Winery, I encourage you to subscribe to their e-news campaigns. They're phenomenal. But at the end of the day, this is everything for how you move the needle beyond being another wine brand on the shelves of 11,045 brands competing across the US today. There's a lot of darn good wine on the shelves of Costco and Safeways, but at the end of the day, it's these three pillars that are moving the needle, and why successful DTC brands can see up to 60% profit margin to the bottom line. Number two, getting behind a cause with your tribe of wine brand loyalists. So there's been a lot of news before COVID, but especially this past year, about luxury brands, retail, in and outside of the wine industry, getting behind causes, being a part of a community together and doing something good. And number three, extending personal touch points in between visits to deepen relationships and stay connected. And so you hear a lot right now about personalization, thoughtfulness, doing things together, being a part of something important. And so these three panelists today are going to reveal to you some of their stories of success around these three pillars. I begin every one of my programs with this quote from the beautiful late Maya Angelou. And this is at the heart of why we're all here in this beautiful space that we are. We are all hospitalitarians. And yes, I did coin that phrase. Hospitalitarians at the heart of what we do in the direct-to-consumer wine space. And this is where the brands can truly differentiate. It's how we make people feel. It goes beyond the wine experience. It goes beyond the sip of your latest release. And it truly is the matter of, taking that time to make people feel recognized, inspired, appreciated, encouraged, welcomed. So my question for you all in the audience today is, how is your wine brand building communities, and who's owning this important responsibility? In large audiences, I'll see a show of hands, about who that person is, but in actuality, anybody working for the direct-to-consumer side of a winery today is a community builder, period. And I hope that if there's one thing that you really leave from this group of panelists today and all of our words of wisdom is that you understand that this is fundamental, that keeping the main thing in this space, in this competitive landscape that we're in today is about community building. So let's hear from the panelists about their unique approaches and their success stories. So the first pillar, the fastest way to cut through noise and remain relevant is to provide those meaningful invitations. So up on the screen, you see some examples of, email invitations that I receive. And these ones really stood out to me because they were genuine, they were thoughtful, they were authentic, they were different. Dash sellers over in the Alameda part of the Bay Area, they know that Fleabig is important to a lot of their super fans and their audiences. And so they put together the right experience that is meaningful. And so over at Cliff Family, I love the mindfulness about sustainability and really being right on it. And being a part of the Earth Day celebrations, so you think about the opportunities that wineries big and small have today. Roger Berry, I love he and Donna and what they're doing with their small brand out of Sonoma County. They're always looking at what it is that their audience wants more of. And so let's get into some of your keys to success. And we're going to start off with Efren.
Okay.
I love the foodie side of things. I love this food truck thing that you had going on for a while now. Can you tell us about when that started and what's happening with this?
Yeah, great question. So the food truck, we started it in 2014, and it was, I guess for us, it was really a need to have a culinary element intertwined to our experience. And we have, I guess you always think about as a marketer or as a business owner, how can you actually fix a problem that you have or a challenge, I guess, an opportunity. And for us the main issue was that we didn't have the infrastructure to actually build a kitchen or anything. So the next best fun idea would be to purchase a food truck and operate out of there as our kitchen to serve amazing food. So created this concept around this whole farm to truck experience where the star is bruschetta, Italian bruschetta. And that goes back to Gary and Kit's travels through Italy, where they met some friends who owned a bar called Samsara that served some very delicious bruschetta. So with that inspiration, we created the Cliff Family Bruschetteria. And since its inception in 2014, it's been quite a hit, especially amongst the folks that visit the tasting room, because who doesn't want some amazing food to pair with your wine? That's the perfect marriage, and being able to create good dishes that pair with the wines is key for us. So that is essentially the food truck. Yeah.
Love it. I love this photo on the left, and you're explaining that these are essentially the breakfast bites. So you're getting people with fresh palates first thing in the morning out there enjoying some breakfast bites, sipping on the wine, having a great time.
Yeah, that's actually one of our newer experiences that I'll touch on a little bit later, but that is a very exciting one. It's called Rise and Wine. We always like to come up with those very unique, fun names for our tasting experiences, but that you guys will learn a little bit more and why we put that together. It's delicious. I tried it the other day.
Good for you. Moving on also, I just loved some of these photos you shared, this video. You get this feeling at Cliff Family Winery that not only is the community aspect and community building aspect important from a consumer audience side, but it really is coming from the inside out. So it looks like you're building some pretty awesome communities with your staff at Cliff Family.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is for us is culturally, you have to understand what the brand means to you, and what the brand means to the audience as well. And for us, our audience is mixed between outdoor folks who love to enjoy a good bike ride or a good hike or a good run, and then come back and refuel with some good food and wine, and be able to intertwine that culture into not only the tasting room experience and the brand experience, but also I always like to say you have to walk the walk and talk the talk. And the truth is that we're all big nerdy foodies that love to ride our bikes and go hiking or go running. We all do all those activities. So it's very natural. It comes very natural for us to share these things that we all love with our friends and family and visitors.
And that's essential. That's for the audience that you're thinking about your Q&A here. For Efron, that is essential. This wine brand knew their tribe, and they've stayed true to that tribe. And the art of storytelling is, to be an effective storyteller, you need to first of all know your audience. And so I think this is a perfect marriage of just that. And so moving on, I love this example recently, one of the March emails I received from you about the Peloton community that you're fostering.
Yeah, the whole Peloton community is quite a phenomenon, because we do have a lot of people on staff who are big fans of Peloton. And one of the ideas for us was really to harness harness that whole community and create an experience behind it. And this was kind of during that time where virtual experiences were still they're still a thing, but I mean, this was one of those unique experiences that we wanted to show. So rather than doing an outdoor bike ride, which we couldn't yet, we said, well, let's do a Peloton ride and get people engaged. So that was a very fun experience. And those are things that we all love to do and love to share with folks. So it was such a blast.
Thank you. All right, Maggie, tell us about this awesome experience at Alta Colina.
Absolutely. So Alta Colina, we are all about the vineyard. We bought this 130-acre piece of property in 2003. We farmed 31 of those acres. And I wouldn't even call it a challenge, it's just a reality of the way the property is. When folks come and visit the tasting room, they're at one property line, so they're all the way over here. And the vineyard is all the way over here. And so for a lot of folks, when they come, they don't necessarily get to experience the vineyard. And through friends of friends, we ended up meeting some local folks. Their names are Jamie and Carl Holm, and they have a company called Tinkerton. And we ended up partnering with them. Tinkerton, their business has moved in different directions, but at the time, a lot of what they did was restoring vintage camper trailers. So you can see here that cute pink trailer is our Shasta. And we ended up partnering with them, and we created something called the Trailer Pond. And it is situated in the middle of our 31-acre vineyard. It's at the back of the 130-acre property. And the idea was, we have this stunning setting. It's really sort of spiritual level beautiful on this property. And it's not a situation that's that straightforward to just say, go enjoy, check it out. And so we wanted to come up with a creative way for not only people in general to get to experience the vineyard, but really a different set of people than who we tend to serve through membership and in the tasting room. So we created the Trailer Pond, which is a 5-trailer campground. And we book it from March to November, sort of mid-March to mid-November is the camping season. Otherwise it's shut down just because it's cold and it's not that pleasant outside and we have some maintenance to do. And one of the things that really was cool about it, it took off pretty quickly in terms of social media. It's beautiful and it's so Instagrammable. And we were able to really connect with a different audience. So at Alta Colina, my dad and I run it together, right? So he's in his 70s, I'm in my 30s. We speak different languages, we are interested in different things, but here we are running a winery together and enjoying a glass of wine all the time. We all know that wine brings people together, but I think people want to experience it in different ways. And the trailer pond has been an incredible opportunity to loop in a slightly younger demographic. So of course we see bachelorette parties and girls' weekends, but we also see lots of couples getaways. We see lots of 40th birthday parties. It's a mix, about 50-50 of one group rents all 5 trailers, and sometimes it's just one-off rentals. And it's a very self-selecting set of people that come. And honestly, some of them come and what they're interested in is the Instagram photo. They're less interested in the wine. And so it's an opportunity for us to start that conversation with them and connect with them and try to win them back in the future to not only stay, but become members and sort of continue to engage with us in those ways.
Yeah, and you know what, Maggie, you touch on something important. You have the opportunity to educate and guide and inspire the younger generation. And that's such a big part of the conversation that we have at industry gatherings. You know, how do we tap into that mid-20-something, late 20-something qualified audience who wants to experience wine in a different way their parents did, right? And I love that you were thoughtful about this. I'm envisioning, 40th, 50th birthday celebrations, BFF reunions, adult family members now getting together, which across the US for the first time in history, the number of adult children living with their parents is the highest we've ever seen. And so those children being exposed to their parents' favorite club wines, et cetera. And so I just think there's so much thoughtfulness behind this, and I cannot wait myself to get out there and explore your trailer pond.
You're invited. We'd love to have you.
Thank you. And then moving on. So, Maggie talks about the father and daughter team, and there's something really special about that from a visitor experience, from a loyalist experience. I mean, knowing that you're going to re-engage with 2 very different individuals that are complementary in many ways. And so you see these photos, and I get the feeling of intimacy at Alta Colina. Tell us about these experiences.
So on the left is our cellar door tasting, which has been on hold until about a week ago. We have always wanted to have some elevated experiences available. And so we created one in our cellar probably 5 or 6 years ago. And it's in the same building as our tasting room. It's a slightly higher price tag. It's included for members. Every version of a tasting we do is included in membership. We really use that as a retention tool. But we also wanted to have something that was, practically speaking, manageable. We're small. I don't have a ton of staff. So having a really beautiful setting that's 30 feet away from the tasting room makes it a lot more executable and sort of sustainable for us. And it's just a slightly elevated, private, pretty, sort of photographable moment for people. And the photo on the right is our Summit Vineyard tastings. And these have been really popular, sort of as we've been off and on over the last year or so. This is an experience where we meet at the tasting room, people book it ahead of time. And then historically, we would go in one vehicle, we now caravan. But we have a loop. So we drive by the trailer pond so people get to lay their eyes on that, which is very, very beautiful. And then we come around and you walk, about 25 feet down a vine row. And we have this beautiful viewing deck. So you're surrounded by vines. And we do as many of these as we can, which is about 6 a week. So it's low volume, very high touch. Mm-hmm. And the Summit Vineyard tastings they make our job really easy, because the setting is beautiful. Even if people don't really care about viticulture, they're going to have a good time. And it helps us tell the story of, you grow wine, you don't make wine, and you're sitting in the place where the wine is really made. Mm-hmm. And so it's just this really seamless extension of sort of what drives us and what drives the wines. And for the most part, my dad or myself hosts those. And so it's a pretty special thing, and we have a great time. It lets us really connect with new folks, longtime members. It's a recipe for success. It's gone really well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Over to Judd. We're so excited to hear about what's happening with Charles Krug.
Yeah, thanks, Sandra. It's a really dynamic environment right now. I think it's a dynamic environment for everybody as we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And one of the things that we were very proud of is when March 15th, 2020 hit and everything was shut down, we immediately frankly went on the offensive. And my team, we sat down and we said, look, we're pretty sure everybody else is going to kind of hunker down and wait to see what happens. And at that point in time is when we took sort of the opposite tack, and we said, look, let's go out and build something new. One of the things about Charles Krug is everybody's heard of it, but it is also been around such a long time that maybe you hadn't been there in a long time. So I think the word relevance is a really important word for us and probably every winery. We're in a pretty crowded environment. This is a pretty easy entry industry with a lot of choices for the consumers and not a lot of loyalty. So really the direction that we took with Charles Krug, because of the land and the legacy and the legitimacy of our operation, with all the family heritage and things like that, we really established ourselves as the cultural hub of Napa Valley. And let's start turning ourselves into all of the things that may build culture. And that could be everything from comedy to movies, to performing arts, to music, to whatever it happens to be. And what we ended up doing really to, I think, really help our community in Napa Valley. Last night's a perfect example of it. The Cameo Theater in St. Helena is beloved by the community, and it's closed because it's so small. It's been around for 6 years or something like that. And people can't go there. And the owners are just phenomenal people. And we just opened up our doors. We have about 11-acre plot on perfectly flat land without any vineyards on it at all. And they're doing a pop-up drive-in theater there. And that'll happen all through the summer, every Wednesday night. Even if everything opens up, they're still going to do the drive-in. And our first one was last night. It was a huge success, and it's a blast to see all these cars, pile in and watch a movie out on this big empty lot. Then along the same lines, the Blue Note, which is a jazz club, a music club in general in Napa, but it's founded in New York and it's worldwide. The franchise here in Napa is closed. It can only hold about 130 people. And if you're at 20% capacity or 50% capacity, you just can't afford to pay the talent that they get, which are big names, to come and play. So we've embarked in a relationship with them where the Blue Note is building a professional stage outside in front of our tasting room, looking out at Mount St. Helena. And we have a lawn there that can hold socially distanced about close to 300 people in little cafe tables and 2 per table to watch a series of music. And that is starting actually the weekend before Memorial Day, and will run all through the summer, every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. 2 shows per night, just like you would if you were at the Blue Note. So you can imagine that the invitation here is to get people who maybe hadn't been to Charles Krug up Valley, and we'll get literally thousands of new visitors to the location, not necessarily to come for Charles Krug or the wines, but because of the Blue Note. Well, Blue Note because of that partnership, becomes our introduction to this group to either visit Charles Krug again for the first time in 10 years or for the first time ever. And then, of course, also Festival Napa Valley, which is a phenomenal operation, one of the largest charitable organizations in Napa Valley, by the way. And it's very highbrow music, symphony, things like that. We will be one of the venues, but we'll be the primary venue for Festival Napa in August this year. And that's just one of many, many things that we're doing all simultaneously. So we went on the attack, started getting all these things set up so that when we open up, suddenly we've got, a million things going on and reasons to come to Charles Krug.
Thank you. And Jed, you touch on something really important. Community building sometimes is from the inside out. It's from within your community. And I think the approach that you have taken is very encouraging for the audience members as well. Think about the 2 or 3 community members, organizations that you can come alongside in the next year to do something meaningful, and maybe also inspire new audiences to start to engage with your wine brand in a different way. And by the way, talking about some of the great acts you have coming out this summer, I will be joining Charles Krug in June for Carl Denson, one of my favorite saxophonists.
There you go. Yeah, people like Pink Martini, from Los Lobos. I mean, it's really pretty exciting stuff.
I'm going to try to come in August for Taj Mahal. I was
There you
stalking
go.
your website.
So good. So good. I might have to meet you
And
there.
you're a 30-something, which I love to see. A 30-something come to see Taj Mahal. Awesome.
I love him so much.
Yes, me too. So here we are also in sustainability focus. And so this is something that just from my perspective, my first interaction with wine back at Markham, I'm just young in myself. And so I remember in the early 90s coming out into Napa Valley and just really kind of embracing some of what was happening with the early winery families, and the sustainability focus was going on then. So tell us about what you're doing to build communities through these endeavors.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll just tell you that as the CEO of a company, if you come on board, the first thing you want to find out is what the long-term plan is for the company. And it was very clear from the Mondavis that they have a mission to never sell. And I think that's critical as the CEO, because if I'm taking over a company and they want to flip it, that's a very different negotiation in your contract than if you're going to pass it on to generation after generation. So as a result, we really started taking a look at who the great estates were of the world and model ourselves around them. And we looked at, when you really think about companies in America, there aren't that many multiple generation companies. The success rate is abysmally low. And by the time you get to the fourth generation, the success rate is in the 2 to 3% region. So it's very remarkable to last this long. And we really took a look at the Antinori family in Italy, who are now in their 26th generation as our aspirational direction on this. So when we talk about sustainability, it's not just the environmental sustainability, it is the business sustainability and the family sustainability, but they're all interconnected. Because if you're going to be passing on a winery to your children and their children and their children's children, you really want to leave it in a better condition than it was when you started with. And that's why we are very dedicated to the Napa Green programs. The one picture that you can see on the side there is an aerial shot of our estate in St. Helena. And if you look closely, you can see that the entire production building is filled with solar. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, solar installation in Napa Valley. It supplies at least 40% of the energy for our operation. And it's just a fantastic thing. We were trying to do to keep that sustainability, not only as environmental sustainability, but as a family sustainability. We do have 850 acres in Napa Valley, which is quite a few. We sell a great deal of our grapes to other wineries. Well, that's our responsibility to farm those responsibly if we're going to sell grapes to them.
Absolutely. And, when you think about past, present, future journeys and taking your brand loyalists all these years with Charles Krug on those journeys, those who appreciate what you're doing in the sustainability aspect will continue to be inspired and encouraged every time they re-engage and bring friends and want to continue to hear about what are you doing next? What's Charles up to next in this space?
Exactly. Yeah.
There we are. Moving on. Let's talk about pillar number 2, feel good together. It feels good to get behind a cause with wine brands that we all love. And we know that feeling, that moment where we realize, gosh, there's these commonalities. They're not only here to make a couple bucks, but they're actually here to do something good for others. And so let's talk about, you can see some examples here with food and wine. And so a lot of articles, a lot of media attention in the last couple of years on this topic within the wine industry. So let's dig into some examples here. So Charles Krug, again, when you look at some of the things you do, you talk about the spirit of community involvement. Tell us about some of these initiatives that you're behind today.
Right. The family is very dedicated to helping the community. And that's just inherent in the entire company. Again, we use this term, what would a great estate do? And a great estate would help the community. So the picture on the right there is the PG&E base camp at Charles Krug. Again, that exact same location where the movies are being shown for the cameo is an 11-acre plot that is empty. And when the fire hit in 2020, honestly, anytime we have some kind of natural disaster, an earthquake, a fire, whatever it is, our first reaction is we have a telephone sort of tree, and I immediately go out to my senior team, who then reaches out to their team, who reaches out to their team. The first thing we do is we want to make sure that everybody in the company is absolutely safe and accounted for. Once we found out that everybody was safe and accounted for, our immediate direction was to find out how's the community doing and what can we do since we're safe to help our community. And if you know where Charles Krug is, it's strategically located really in between Highway 29, Silverado Trail, and Deer Park Road. And that's where the fires were just blaring. So, and everybody had lost their power. So we have this large plot of land that we opened up the doors for PG&E, which enabled them to restore power to all of the communities around there in record time, probably 2 weeks earlier than they would have, because they had that location there. And then on top of that, which I think is really maybe as much of a community building story here, is that there were 600 employees or consultants going into that base camp every day. And think about that. They need breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And who's going to feed them? Well, in St. Helena, there's a plethora of wonderful, wonderful restaurants who were all closed or very close to closed or only doing, takeout business. So we connected the dots between PG&E and several of our restaurants. And those restaurants ended up becoming the feeder for all these employees, and fed literally thousands of meals over the 40 days or whatever that they were there. And it helped several of those restaurants, frankly, stay in business, which is awesome. Plus, PG&E got some pretty damn good food. And then in addition to that, we have several charitable events that we sponsor on our great lawn. We have a wonderful, large area of lawn in the back of the winery, about 100,000 square feet, and with a stage and all sorts of things. So events like Hands Across the Valley, which feeds the poor in Napa Valley, is a critical thing. We do Boys and Girls Clubs. We do all sorts of different activities. We have the land and we have the space, and we're also blessed with the fact that we are grandfathered into a lot of use permit elements. So we want to give back to the community in as many ways as we can. We probably do anywhere from 6 to 10 fundraisers every year that we donate our space to for those fundraisers.
Incredible. Thank you. Let's move on to Cliff family. Again, being very mindful of who your tribe is, tell us about this initiative.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. So this was a very fun project that we worked on. So we partnered up with the Outdoor Industry Association back in 2019, and we wanted to do a big splash on Public Lands Day. So what we decided to do is basically create this program where 20% of the proceeds from an email campaign, plus social media, plus all the media channels, to donate back to Public Lands Day. And that was a big thing for us, just because we, as a brand, Cliff Family is always on the path to sustainability. It's one of our 5 aspirations. And this was something that is near and dear to us. And I think for us, we understand that that's a piece that you're continuously working on in the community to try to figure out what ways you could actually make an impact. So this was one of the pieces that we really focused on that year. What we do strategically every year, we kind of pick a different sort of charity or a beneficiary, but all of it is centered around our 5 aspirations. So it's either, we support causes that are about sustainability or the environment, about people, about many different things. So it just really depends what we choose, but every year it's something new. This year we actually have something big, huge brewing, which I am not able to share, but you will see in the future.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is dun, dun, dun. This is another one that I was heavily involved in. So in 2017, that was when the first fires hit. And we have a partner who designs all of our garments. The company is called Capo Cycling. And we got together with Rebecca Koch, who's actually really huge into cycling events across the Napa Valley. So the three of us put our heads together and we figured out what can we do to actually help the community in some way, shape, or form, the people that are being affected by the fire. So we decided to create this kit called the California Love Kit. And this specific one is actually from 2020. Let me correct back. This is from 2020, from the last fire, but the proceeds went to what was it? It was I'm jogging my memory. So sorry. I'm going to pull up my notes. This is actually the first responders resiliency. So this actually goes back to the folks on the front line, not the folks that are either the law enforcement officers, the EMT folks. There's this big program that really supports their afterthought, which is really there's a lot of PTSD happening after these things happen, after these natural disasters. So this association is really great about supporting these folks. So that was very near and dear to us, very close to our community. And it was really good about the really nice thing is really partnering up with different entities to be able to kind of amplify the message. So not only was that message amplified across different platforms, all the different brands actually pushed out the content, which was huge. And it was great. It was a huge impact. We actually sold, I can share that information. We actually sold over 100 cycling kits. And they're not cheap. Every cycling kit is worth about $300. So there you go. It's super fun.
So your tribe got behind the cause. It all felt good. And actually, I just learned something new today. My son just started his career in firefighting. So I'm going to check out that first responders resiliency program. So thank you so much, Efren, for that.
Of course.
And sometimes when we think about sustainability and we think about philanthropic efforts, and I know Maggie, you and I had this back and forth, sometimes it's the insight. You begin from the inside. You begin with your staff. And so during this time of pandemic this past year, and on top of mind right now, May of 2021, is how are we going to bring people back? How are we going to hire up? And we're having a hard time across California. And I know that at Alta Colina, you were very intentional about taking care of your staff. Tell us more about that.
Very much so. Rewinding back to March 2020, none of us knew what was going to happen. And our phone tree is a little smaller than yours, Judd, I imagine, but making sure that our team was healthy, able to be home as much as they needed to be and as much as we had to, of course. So it was really a priority for us to basically sell wine so we could keep paying everyone. We really felt strongly about the sustainability of our business from that perspective, and how can we help the people who are, how can we start just with our team? And at this point, as we are looking at higher traffic numbers and, sort of the momentum is really building, you can just feel it. There's sort of that palpable energy in the air of like, people are ready to be out here doing stuff. We are trying to hire, and we're looking to community-driven hiring options. So speaking to a couple local nonprofits, there's a local shelter, there's another local nonprofit that funnels, it's really federal grant money towards getting folks who it might be difficult to get their foot in the door in terms of employment to get the foot in the door. So we're really trying to come at that from a community local place. Sure. And build, sort of move forward and keep building in a really positive way.
Absolutely. And so on the screen now, we're going to look at what was Judd's baby. And so, Judd was ahead of his time here when you hear about the story he's going to share with us now with Humanitas.
Yeah, thanks, Sandra. So Humanitas was back in, I moved to Napa Valley in 1992, and I was recruited by Robert Mondavi. So I've actually worked for both sides of the family, right? And I worked there from 92 to 01. And one of the things that I learned with Robert Mondavi was how important culture was. the culture of a company and the graciousness that goes behind it, and et cetera. But one of the things that I really, I'm a wine geek. I wanted to have my own winery, right? And the last thing that this industry needed was another winery out there polluting an already polluted industry, right? There's a lot of wineries, and unless I had some unique and compelling reason to exist, why exist? So in the late '90s, I was really like struggling to find that story. Well, in a parallel life, I have 3 children, and I wanted to be a good example to my kids. I felt that philanthropy was a very important thing, but for those, since we're all in the wine industry, we all know that we don't make any money in the wine industry, and it's a lifestyle business. And if you want to give money to charity, and if you don't have money to give to charity, what do? You volunteer. So I volunteered to serve food at the table, local church that serves the poor, and where everybody else was kind of walking away from that saying, I feel so great about life, and isn't it good that I'm doing this? I was depressed. It was very depressing to see what was going on. And what I learned was that I wasn't very good at volunteering. So I was struck in this dilemma. I wanted to do good, but I wasn't very good at doing it. And I had no money to give. But I realized that I was a wine guy, and I wanted to always have my winery. So I bonded my shed in my backyard in Napa and started making wine there. And I created a brand called Humanitas, which is Latin for philanthropy, human nature, kindness. And the concept was very simple. It was to become the Paul Newman's Own of the wine industry, and not be a charity giving, trying to make wine, but being a professional winery that happened to give its profits to charity. And I chose 3 primary need elements: hunger, housing, and health. And then I did something a little bit more unique too, and that is wherever I sold the wine, whatever market it was, I would give back to those markets. I would give back to the charities in those markets. So the people were helping their own community when all they had to do was drink. And I then created a revenue stream that I didn't have to give to charity. And over the years, it was a tiny little operation, right? But it ended up giving about $400,000 away to charity. And that's $400,000 that I certainly did not have. So it was a great way. It was sort of a win-win-win for everybody out of the whole thing. It ultimately sold to partners that I brought on later on. And unfortunately, they've elected to close the doors. But it was a really unique experience. And it was frankly, if I could do it again, I'd do it all over again.
Thank you for sharing that incredible story, Judd. And for the audience, if you have questions for Judd as a follow-up from today's conversation, do reach out. I think this is fundamental as we continue to identify our tribes, get behind causes that feel good together, and stay relevant. And so moving on to pillar number 3, deepening the relationships. And so some of you in the audience who have heard me in my past workshops or symposiums, I talk a lot about personal touch points. And what are personal touch points? Those are those moments in between visits that you stay better connected with your audience, that you deepen the relationship. You get to really, truly know one another. And at the end of the day, you're letting your loyalists know that you care. It's not just about the show at the tasting room or a wine club party, but it's an in-between conversation, and it comes in many shapes and forms today. On the bottom right here, you'll see an example of some of the customer touch point programs we put together for our clients. And it starts a lot of times with individual questions, like the why behind the reach. Time being the number one commodity of luxury wine buyers today, we need to be very mindful of why when we pick up that phone to make a call and our personal reach. And so I love what Maggie has shared with us here today. How are you staying in touch with your community?
We do a lot of very analog outreach. We, of course, are on social media doing email marketing, but we also literally write postcards constantly. So we try to, we've got about, 10 different postcards, and we encourage our tasting room team, as well as really everyone, to, if you have a great conversation with a member in the tasting room, write them a 2-sentence postcard while you're thinking of it right then. We'll mail it the next week. Same thing after a phone call. We do the same thing just in shipments. So if someone places an online order, they're going to get all of the automatic thanks for your order stuff. And we also try to have something handwritten in every single box that goes out, because especially during COVID, it just felt like there was a way to, like, a human was involved here, you know? And so it's a very simple thing that we do a lot of. The printer that we work with is a member of our wine club, and he makes fun of us constantly because 90% of the work he does for us is printing these postcards, which is ridiculous, but they're great. And the goal in terms of the imagery is that it's something someone would put on their fridge. Beautiful. And we also try to tailor. So if someone's in the tasting room, they're inquiring about the trailer pond, we'll send them a trailer pond photo. If someone's in the tasting room and we want to invite them for a vineyard tasting, we'll send them the photo with that. A lot of people love the dog. Of course, we send the dog. So very simple, but something that has proven worth the time.
And again, the thoughtfulness behind it and the empowerment that you give to your staff in the tasting room to say, you know, our priority is taking care of our visitors, our loyalists, our super fans. And at the end of the day, going back to the Maya Angelou quote, this is how you're making people feel outside of the show, outside of that tasting room experience. So congratulations with this initiative. So personal touch points today, and I'm going to hear from Efron next, come in many different shapes and sizes. We have done a lot of work in the last 4 to 5 years with helping clients, not only Napa and Sonoma, but across the US, start to leverage and launch new private client service programs for this very reason. Not at the best, we're seeing an 8 to 16%, 20% conversion to club, depending on the model, winery model and region. And so you've got 80% of those visitors leaving the front door with sometimes not an invitation back. And you've got some of those 80% of visitors qualifying pretty big at 1,000, 1,500 maybe on a first order. So private client services is that personal touch point that solves a lot of problems and also helps move the needle for many brands today. Personal notes by mail and on and on. The key here, and we're going to get into some storytelling with Efron, is the capturing of the communication preferences early on. It's everything today. It's that mindfulness of asking the right question when somebody's willing to reinvest their time and finances with your wine brand. So tell me what you're doing over at Cliff Family in this regard.
Yeah, good question. So we're doing something a little bit, it's not completely unique, but what we're doing is we're harnessing the tools that we have from a technology standpoint, using a really nice CRM system to create this whole notion of relationship sales. And relationship sales as a term sounds like, okay, you're just selling, but the whole premise behind this is really to have every single team member, including our general manager, establish a long-term relationship with every single customer that they come across. So a quick example, and this is kind of the way that we train, is we always train our front-end associates to say, okay, somebody walks in and purchases 4 bottles of wine, and you don't collect the data, you don't collect the name, you don't get to know the person, but they had a great time. That's a huge missed opportunity. So for us, the big key is A is data collection, and then B is also establish that relationship, that rapport with that consumer. Now, your first touch point doesn't have to be a sale. It could be, hey, how do you like the wines? Did you enjoy your experience? And so this is something that has gotten very ingrained into our brand and what we do overall, where we just, we use our CRM system to really get everyone to continue to, build the funnel. So we build a funnel of consumers that we're actually going to reach out to for the future. So if I contact Sandra today and say, Sandra, it was so great for you to host you in the taste room. I hope you love the wines, blah, blah, blah. She doesn't respond. That's okay. I'll set a reminder for myself to reach out again, maybe by phone and say, hey, sorry, I missed you. Just wanted to say hello. So that's kind of the way that we're using technology to continue that deep-rooted relationship. So as that gets built, those people will revisit the Valley and we become almost their personal concierge. So as for restaurant recommendations, other wineries to visit, so on and so forth. So it's a very powerful tool to use that has been very effective for us. the uniqueness is that we get the entire team involved. And that's very unique because most wineries actually have their own dedicated team that handle that. But for us, it's more authentic to actually develop those relationships with that specific person.
Yes, absolutely. It's going beyond the sale and letting people know that they have been appreciated and that you want to continue that engagement, continue to build a relationship. And so I know we're getting close on time here. I'm going to start to wrap us up on these couple of points, but a couple of things for the audience. And I get this question a lot, so I'm just going to nip it at the bud. Just like email opt-in with anti-spam laws, when you make phone calls, if you have a transaction associated with a customer record from a business to consumer experience, you've got one time to make that phone call and then get the opt-in, right? And so there's a lot of ways today through automation of CRM systems, integrating with SMS text to learn, what type of communication is going to best work. And so we see with techies, doctors, attorneys, SMS text, instant messaging is the name of the game today. So some words of wisdom for you all there. A couple other points as well is looking at our friend Jim Morris over at Charles Krug. He empowers his staff, the frontline staff. Every hospitality professional there is empowered to leverage the CRM data. And so COVID forced the situation of making reservations. It forced us all now to be a little bit better about knowing who's going to visit us and to prepare the table appropriately. So that welcome Sandra image that you see right there, you know what it feels like when I walk in and I'm seated at a table, and this didn't cost a lot of money. This is butcher paper with a marker, people. And so just take that time. My word of wisdom here as we start to wrap up, and you're going to hear from the rest of the audience on their words of wisdom, is take the time to get to know who your tribe is, build meaningful invitations to continue to help them re-engage. And you might be in the audience thinking, gosh, I'm not doing any of these three things right now. Start to pick one that's most genuine to your brand, the thing that you can do that's the lowest cost, the lowest hanging fruit that you know is going to be the most genuine to who you all are. And so as we wrap up, words of wisdom from you all. Let's start with Maggie.
Sandra, it's hard to follow your words of wisdom. I think reiterating the number of times we all say the word authenticity, it feels like a bit of an eye roll. It's like before we said pivot all the time, it was authenticity, but it really is what it's about. And we are very much in the camp of we have very little money. We don't have the fanciest softwares. We're not in a position yet to do all of those things. So putting in a little bit of extra work to just make sure that my tasting room team is in a position that they can provide the best service possible. So things like taking the information from the reservation system, pre-populating it into our CRM software so that there are just steps taken out so they can really focus on the exchange, on the interaction, make it easy for them to do little things like a postcard or a note or whatever. Everyone that works for us has an email address that's at altacolinawine.com so that they can send a personal email if they want to. Some of them use it all the time, some of them never use it, but it's available, and just keeping it about people, especially now. Just come in, have a good time, connect, and then try to sell them stuff.
Thank you, Maggie, for that important word of wisdom for the audience. And so let's move over to Afram.
Words of wisdom. There's a lot of them on my end, so I'm not gonna come up with a long-winded answer to that. But I guess what's made things very easily for us here is really looking outside of the wine business when it comes to opportunities. So we all do a great job in the wine business of building communities and getting new customers and building a robust email marketing strategy. But at the end of the day, we are still a small community in the wine industry. And it's always a great helpful tool is to always seek out what is going on outside of the wine industry and really take some of those tidbits and ideas to apply it to your business. And one of the things is that when I started here, we didn't have the budget to implement marketing tools, fancy marketing tools like we have now, which I'm very grateful for. But back then, it was always about the relationship. It's always about the small touches. So everything that Maggie's doing on her end is amazing, because that's kind of what I like to say. going back to basics. When I was in my retail hat a long time ago, once upon a time, that was how I was taught. I was actually taught to build a Rolodex of your top customers and always stay in touch, and also always write notes. And it's no different from a relationship with one of your best friends, right? You send them a note and say, hey, thank you so much for the invitation. It was great to see you. Your dinner was amazing. It's no different. So if you treat your customers just like you treat your friends, there's a lot of success in that from a, I guess I would say from a relationship building standpoint.
Well said. Well said. That was so well said. And so, Judd, dun 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 dun.
Well, I think my words of wisdom are the same words of wisdom I've had for years, and that is simply to be remarkable. Do everything you can to be remarkable so that you can create raving fans. And I'll give a little nod to Ken Blanchard for that one. But when I say remarkable, I don't mean fantastic. What I mean is the literal translation. Do things that will make people remark about you and the service that they received. And everybody's already talked about the little touches and things like that, but ultimately, these are the things that are going to add up to you being remarkable and memorable because of that.
Well, I just so appreciate each of you taking time out of your busy days to be a part of this important conversation. I love the community that we're a part of in the direct-to-consumer wine world. And I want to say thank you to George and the Wine Industry Network team for having us here today. Audience members, now it's your turn. Let's look over the Q&A, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you all. Cheers.